Good morning, guys. I am talking to you from my patio and I'm trying to make this as quick as possible because I don't want to be out here any longer than I have to. I'm wearing my N95 mask today because I'm really concerned about the air quality. The fires are still going on, and if you take a look at the links I gave you yesterday, you can still see exactly where all the fires are going, and there's over 100 fires going on, various parts of the state. A lot of that smoke and ash is flowing into the Central Valley and settling on us. You should stay inside as much as possible. The air is bad. Your lungs are working really hard to process all of this air, and they are suffering, believe me. The ash is visible, and when you look at the ash that's on the patio here, okay, I've got all this ash and little flakes of white powder. That is ash that's from the burning wood, and you can see that, and you say, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Well, at least I won't breathe too much of it. I can see how much there is. I can see 1, 2, 3. Right, it's big enough you could count. The problem is, I'm gonna take this off just for a minute so you can see my mouth. The problem with all of this ash is that the ash is the biggest part of what's in the air. The part that you can't see is actually more dangerous to your lungs. Your lungs are working really hard to process the smaller parts. Now, the smaller parts are ones that would actually damage your lungs. You can't even see them. They have particles, the range, that's the size of the wavelength of visible light. So light travels in a wave. Red wavelengths are the largest of the wavelengths. Red wavelengths of light travel in about a size of 0.7 micrometers. 0.7 micrometers is about the size of the wavelength of red light. Now, if I were to take out one of my hairs, all right, this hair here, oh, I actually did get one. You see that hair? Okay. This hair is 70 micrometers across. That means that a particle of smoke that if I were to lay it across the diameter of this piece of hair, I'd be able to get 100 of those particles of smoke across the diameter of this hair. And those are all particles that are damaging to your lungs. You don't want that. Smoke from a wildfire has, and here's a list of them. It's got water vapor. There's a lot of water that's in the trees that gets burned and it evaporates, right? We have tar, you have oils, you have carbon dioxide. The minerals that are in the tree's cells, they start to break apart and they form ash. That includes things like calcium, potassium, and magnesium. There's volatile organic compounds. These are hydrocarbons that you don't want to breathe in. And if a building is burning, you can add all kinds of other extra chemicals into that equation because you've got toxic chemicals like carbon monoxide and hydrogen chloride that also are in the smoke. And as we've seen, some of these fires, people are evacuating homes and their homes are going down in flames. And this is why this smoke is nothing to be, this is something to be very concerned about. Don't take it lightly. Something called the air quality index is a way that we can check to see how bad the smoke actually is. I'm going to give you some links you can check on these because it's going to change throughout the day, probably throughout the week. Last night it actually got worse. So you're thinking, okay, maybe it calmed down overnight, maybe the fires burned less or something like that. No. So as we talked about before, that heat is expanding and it's rising, and as it's doing that, it's got this upward motion from the heat of the fire. All of the air expands and it goes out, and then the nighttime comes and it starts to cool down, and as it cools down it falls down into the valley and it condenses, and those particles that were so spread out before because everything was hot, those particles are coming closer together, so the concentration of how many particles that you're breathing is more. So you definitely don't want to go out for a night run or something like that because you're like, well, it'll be cooler at night, but the air will be worse. Hey, good morning, guys. It is another nasty day in Sacramento. We've got horrible air quality. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So there is still so much smoke in the air, which is why I'm wearing my mask today. I got my N95 mask on. Yesterday I saw a chunk of ash like the size of my thumbnail out on my patio. It's crazy how much is falling down. You can take a look at the fire maps that I gave you links to yesterday, and you can see exactly how much smoke there still is in the air based on the fires.